All right, what's up, guys? Hotfix 70 or 57 is out. Sorry, not 70, not there yet. Hotfix 57 just recently got released. It is currently 5:39 a.m. It came out literally an hour 40 ago. And this patch is pretty huge. Pretty big meta changes, I think, actually, on across the board. It's actually really, really interesting. So let's get right into it. So, to start off with, there were some like issues that were fixed. Out of all these, the ones that are only important are fixed an issue where items could not be obtained when interacting with Horde, even though there's space in the inventory. Basically, what happened here was if you didn't have room for the first item, I believe, so if you pulled like a Pavise or something that was like really, really big and you didn't have room for this, it wouldn't pull any items following that. That's, I think, how it worked. I could be wrong. It could have just been a bug. Sometimes it didn't pull anything, but who knows? They fixed this. That's honestly out of these, the other ones don't really matter. Okay, start off. Fighter buffs, finally. Swift movement penalty reduction improved from 20% to 30%. So, this is a 50% increase in the movement speed penalty reduction, which is really nice. Overall, this won't actually be a huge change. This is going to be about 1% to 2% move speed. Generally, we're already gonna run Swift. There were definitely exceptions where you could take it. Like if you look at my last build guide video, there were times I wouldn't take it. Now you're pretty much always going to. It's just way too much value. This is like even if this is only 1% or like slightly above, depending on how heavy the armor you're wearing is, this is effectively an entire movement speed roll worth on like boots, for example. So really, really good. Definitely gonna be running this. Definitely a nice buff. And being able to chase down people is gonna be really, really nice. Just any extra move speed you can have, because I'll probably be running sprint alongside this now. I'll probably be going back to running faster builds rather than tankier ones, especially with some of these cleric nerfs that are coming a little bit later in the patch. And then fighters' weapon mastery no longer has a penalty. This is actually pretty big because this allows us to use other weapons that you couldn't that normally it wasn't really worth it because the base damage wasn't as high. The number one weapon that I'm currently thinking is going to be meta on fighter is probably going to be Morningstar. So, sorry for all those people out there that were, cleric players because it was OP and didn't like the weapon. It's probably still going to be the best weapon in the game for frontliners. I mean, it effectively has falchion base damage while having 15% armor pen innately on it. Yes, you won't get the benefit from running something like Sword Mastery. However, it's still just absolutely insane. And overall, just probably going to be the best weapon. So outside of this, this is a really, really big change for Slayer players. Slayer loves running off meta weapon, or sorry, not off meta, like off class weapons that you can't normally run. They always run survival bow, and yes, survival bow doesn't have a huge benefit from this because most of the damage from survival bow is the true damage you build. This is, excuse me, this is still 10% more damage that you're gonna have with it, and then you can run things like rapier, stiletto, all of these other things that you normally didn't want to run because you had a penalty. Now you can run them, which is gonna be really, really good. Barbarian got a very slight buff. The physical damage reduction from Rage went from minus 15% to minus 10%, and the move speed increased from 9% to 10%. Um, Not super crazy here. More of a solos buff than anything. In trios, you're really not running this. In trios, Warcry and Savage War are generally better. Even outside of that, like Rage just isn't too great in trios because generally you don't really need to chase people down like this as a barbarian, and like you can, if you need to run into a fight, rage isn't really the best thing to do it because you're running into melee. You don't want to be trading PDR for move speed. It's just not super worth it. Although this I think is a pretty good spot. 10% for 10% is pretty fair, I think. Definitely solid. Wizard's Arcane Shield total shield change from 20 to 15. um Nothing crazy here, just very, very slight nerf to Wizard. I'm fine with this. Because I mean the shield, this is pretty much they get 20 extra HP. And, Wizard's already getting a decent amount of HP right now. Good kits, you're getting 130, 140 plus. So, pretty fine. Nothing too crazy. I know a lot of people think Wizard needs to be buffed. I'm for one. I think Wizard's incredibly fine right now. I think it's probably not. It's not OP, but it's definitely in a very, very strong position. If you are good on Wizard, you're gonna see results. And if you have good gear, once again, like it's gonna reward you for playing well. Meditation got super buffed, although this doesn't matter. No one's ever going to run this. It's just not ever worth it. Um, yeah, I mean, 10 spell is just way too strong, especially with spell overload existing. It's just never worth it to run meditation. Maybe you could run this in like solos because it gives you your spells back, so you don't have to campfire. But other than that, it's pretty much never going to be ran. I actually could see like a 5 spell overload build being ran in solos, but like I said, I'm not a wizard player, so I can't tell you really about this. I don't think it's very good, and from what I've heard from like Apollo speaking to him earlier, and we were all in call looking at the patch notes, probably pretty useless. All right, on to some of the biggest changes. These two right here. Perseverance damage absorption changed from 3 to 2, and Cleric's protection from evil bonus effect changed from 50 to 30. So a lot of people are going to look at this and they might think, wow, these changes aren't actually that big. So one thing to consider is this PFE nerf right here. This is really, really big because this is actually going to make the faithfulness nerf from before apply. Before, how it was the slow on faithfulness was 1.5 seconds, and the duration of the faithfulness like the cooldown was 3 seconds, but PFE reduced that to 1.5, so effectively there was no cooldown. Now PFE isn't going to reduce that all the way to 1.5, so there will actually be a cooldown for it, which is pretty big. Also, I mean, this is just like Warlock curses, Fire Mastery, all these things will last longer. Which is just really nice for being able to deal with them. And then Perseverance, this right here is really, really big. For melee hits, not super important, but for all these dots, like think Warlock, Cleric spells like Locust Swarm, which I'm going to talk about because the Locust Swarm is getting buffed down here. And like other like wizard spells, this is really big specifically for those. Yes, Cleric is still going to be incredibly strong in the melee. However, it's going to lose to casters much harder than it already did. Like already in the current meta before this patch came out, Cleric lost to like Warlocks and Wizards because they couldn't ever get to them and they could just kite them out. Yes, it would take a while to kill them, but they couldn't ever do anything to you. So you would eventually kill them. And now this pretty much just doubles down on that. However, following this, I will say this is like the really big question mark of the patch. I don't get this. They buffed Holy Light and Sanctuary's cast time by 0.5 seconds on both of them. I don't understand it. I'll say it. This just doesn't make sense to me. Cleric was already the best backline support. Completely ignoring the frontline build, Cleric was the de facto best backline support. The heals are insane right now. They're very, very strong. And they just buffed them both. Like, if you're going to cast both of these in a fight, that's 1 second off. If one cast of each, that's a second you're saving. 2 casts of each, that's 2 seconds you're saving. And then not to think of like any more spellcasting speed you build this, how much faster it's going to get. Just kind of odd. Like I said, really don't get it. Then Earthquake got a very slight buff. They spelled it wrong, Earthquake. Earthquake got a very slight buff. Not super important. However, this following thing is actually really big. So Locust Swarm. They reduced the cast time from 2.75 to 2.5. Very small buff. Then Cleric's Locust Swarm reduces the amount of physical and magical healing the target receives by 50%. Also, I want to clarify, I've asked, this is only during the effect. Like, while you are in Locust Swarm being affected by it, that is when the antidote is applied to you. It's not a dot, it's not a debuff that applies after. It's only when you're being affected by Locust Swarm. And then, Cleric's Locust Swarm damage per second changed from 2 to 13 and no longer scales. So, this is actually pretty big. Primarily what this is going to be more of an offensive hold thing. Like Earthquake is kind of like, I think, the defensive hold. I'm holding Earthquake, you can't run through here. If you do, I'm going to CC you and you can't do anything, right? Locust Swarm's kind of the opposite. If you run, like, you can still run through here, you won't be CC'd, but I'm going to do a decent amount of damage to you, and you're going to be anti-healed for the duration. The really big part of this, because I know a lot of you are going to think what I said, like, oh, the anti-heal is only for the duration, it's completely useless, but no, not really. Because let's say you drop this on a door, a fighter tries to push through it, or a barbarian or a cleric or whatever tries to run through the door, and you have like damage being put into them. A lot of the times when you're pushing, you're going to be receiving heals because you're taking damage to get in. Now, if they're in the effect of your Locust Swarm, they're going to be getting those heals cut by 50%, which is really, really big. Stack like Fire Mastery on top of this, their heals are going to be very, very low. And I'm assuming Fire Mastery can stack. I don't actually know how the anti-heal things work because the only ones in the game previously were like Famine, which is 100% obviously, but then you have like Blow Up Corruption, Fire Mastery, and I genuinely can't think of the amount of times I've ever been affected by both of those at the same time, so I really don't know if these will stack. But if they do, then Fire Mastery and Locust Swarm would be 100%. I think 100% anti-heal or 90%, 100%. I don't know. Basically 100%. So I do think this is a buff. So okay, obviously it's a buff to Locust Swarm, and I think for Locust Swarm this is a good buff. However, my big complaint with this, and I think a lot of people are going to agree with me here, is this is just another tool that kind of prevents fights, right? This pretty much it's another thing that they could put up to say, hey, you can't push us now, or hey, it's a lot harder for you to push us. And there's already so many things in this game that have that. Like, a lot of people already complain about the quote-unquote ranged meta, and this is just going to further play into that. This is another tool people can use, just hold a door, hold an angle, or whatever that, oh, I can't push them because they're holding Locust Swarm. I can't push them because they're holding Earthquake, or, all these other things. And I mean, personally, I'm not really a big fan of that. Obviously, I am a melee player, so I'm going to be, like, rather biased here. but I don't like adding tools in that prevent fights, right? Because that's pretty much what this is. Locust Swarm, it's like Earthquake. You are never running into a team casting Earthquake on them. That's just not realistic. Honestly, Earthquake actually no, it's not completely impossible to do that, but Locust Swarm you're definitely never going to do because it doesn't provide any CC. Yes, it provides anti-heal, but it's only during the effect of it. And if you're casting on them and they just walk out of it, it's completely useless. You did a tiny bit of damage, and then you could have casted a Holy Strike, which did more damage and CC'd them. So I don't super love the change. I mean, like I said, it's good for the spell to be better, but I don't like it for the overall context of the game. I don't like the message it sends by buffing this. I feel like it's just going to slow the game down in terms of making people not fight, which is something I'm not a fan of. And I feel like a lot of people, like I said, will agree with me on that. But moving on, Warlock's Torture Mastery attribute bonus ratio changed from 0.1 to 0.05. So the magic healing, this is the magic healing scaling, I'm pretty sure, with Torture Mastery. I think that's what this is. It just got halved. Truthfully speaking, I don't think this matters. I'm like, oh my god, it's a dead. I mean, yeah, maybe, but the thing is, Life Drain is already better. You shouldn't be running Torture Mastery Warlock. You should be running Life Drain. Life Drain is so much better. Now, for an actual nerf, Curse of Pain's instant damage changed from 10 to 7. This is pretty big. This is 3 damage off every cast of Curse of Pain, and Curse of Pain is generally going to be your main damage. This is actually a pretty big nerf overall. I don't know how much it will be in the grand scheme, like in a full kit, but this is a pretty fucking big nerf. So, and I'm down with that. I don't like fighting Warlock. No one likes fighting Warlock. The class is not fun to fight. But this pretty much just changes, they can't kill you right. It slows down their ability to kill you. However, if they could kill you before, they probably still can. Warlock is not a damage checking class. It's not like, oh, I couldn't kill that Warlock because he just bursted me. I mean, that has happened, but that's generally more of things with Dark Reflection, right? That's not usually with Complaint of Curse of Pains. If they killed you before, they still will. It is going to take longer, which gives you more time for counterplay, to run away, all these other things. Druid's herbal sensing range increased from 450 to 600. Woo! You can find flowers better. Who the fuck cares? Druid's thorn barrier height changed from 150 to 120. So this now means you can crouch jump over a thorn barrier. I'm just going to be honest with you guys, especially, let me go over this next one too. Druid's Treant spell tier changed from 3 to 5, and count changed from 3 to 2. So, this is wrong. It was supposed to be, it says 3 to 2. Really, this means 4 to 2 because it was currently at 4, and it will be at 2 post-patch. I confirmed this as well. So, I'm just going to be completely honest. Druid's fucking dead. This class is awful. I don't know who at Iron Mace hates Druid so much. I don't mind it. I'm just gonna be real, because this really nerfs the rat playstyle that a lot of Druids have been going on. I don't mind this. I'm just gonna say it. Me as a person, I like it. Fuck Druids. This is annoying. But that class, and if you play Druid, your class is fucking dead. You need to start looking for a new class. I'm just gonna be completely honest. This class is useless. You can jump Thorn Berries, so Thorn Berries have just become a worse Hydra, and now you only have 2 charges of Treant. The spell tiers, it costs 2 extra memory, but who cares? This is only really important if you're naked. But two Treants? This class sucks. This class is horrible, especially with the Panther nerfs from last patch, or whichever patch it was. This class, the only viable build you have now is, Bear, and even then, Bear build's, such a meme. It's so, reliant on people just walking into you. That shit is ass. But, moving on, Crystal Sword's movement penalty changed from 30 to 25. Crystal Sword's base magic damage increased to parity with physical weapon damage. This just means the scaling of the magic damage will be the same scaling as the physical damage. It's a 2 or 3 weapon damage buff. I'm not sure exactly what it is. But yeah, it's better. Certainly better. Not crazy better, but better. Weapon damage increased for Bardiche, Halberd, Battle Axe, Double Axe, Warmaul, and Quarterstaff. I'm fine with all these except Halberd. And honestly, so the thing is, there's a very, very easy way to buff Halberd and buff most of these weapons if you want to be good, and that is buff the sweet spot on them, or buff the sour spot. The problem with these weapons isn't their base damage, it's impossible to hit them with the full base damage because of the sour spot. And this is effectively doing that's effectively doing what you're doing here without buffing the top end of it. Because Halberd already has 60 plus base damage. If you hit him with the sweet spot, that shit already fucking slaps. Problem is, it's so small you never hit them with that. So buffing the base damage is just a half-assed way of buffing sweet spot when you could actually buff the sweet spot and make it realistically decent without making it too good at at hitting the good part that you want to. Because right now, you say, oh, this rewards people for using the weapon properly. Yeah, but there's no fucking way to do that. Anybody with half a brain is going to walk into your melee range that's too close, and you're going to do 0 damage to any of these weapons. Warmaul buff, I don't love. I think nerfing. Oh, is that patch up? Oh, patch is up. Bet. Okay, cool. I gotta hurry up and finish this so I can play the game. Warmail buff I don't love. I think nerfing clerics automatically gonna make Barbarian come back to the meta. I don't think you needed to buff Warmail, but is what it is. Same with the quarterstaff. Cobalt crafted items now give 3.5 armor percent armor pen as a primary attribute. I thought this meant they got rid of the default attribute. That's not. They just now have 3.5%, which means these are insanely strong, especially considering they have 3 rolls. Cobalt's gonna be really, really good. New craft items have been added. This is the Froststone crafts. GXC torch, which is the thing if you donated, you got your torch. Season final quest and cosmetic rewards have been added. Cool. Price for throwing knives and Francisca asking Lord to match the individual price in the previous season. Like, don't matter. It doesn't matter. And then the quest, like, okay, like these things are all completely irrelevant. But in the end, yeah, that's gonna wrap it up. Sorry for cutting this kind of short. I do want to go play the game really badly, actually. But yeah, I'm actually very excited to see this patch. I think the only thing that's going to be overperforming with this patch is going to be Rogue. I think Fighter is going to be strong. I think Cleric's still very viable. I think Backline Cleric is still going to be really OP. I should say that. Caster Cleric is still completely broken because they, for some reason, have to make Cleric that, like, I just don't get it. Like, listen, I'm just going to be this right now. Like, this is just who at Iron Mace, who comment on my video, DM me. I just want to know specifically. I don't even have a reason. I just need to know who the fuck keeps sending these Cleric buffs through. Why? Why do you need Cleric to be the best character in the game at some possible role? It did not need buffs. No one thought Cleric was underperforming as a caster. You did not need to buff it. It was already a staple in almost every team comp in the fucking game. We did not need Cleric caster buffs. Not for the heals. Earthquake, Locust Swarm, whatever. Fine. Cool buffs. Don't care. Do care. Don't care. Holy Light Sanctuary, you did not need to buff these. You didn't need it. Just didn't make sense. But anyways, that's going to wrap it up for me. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.